you. Excuse me. Oh, got a frog stuck in my throat. Hello and welcome to Kickstart. In this video, we're going to be going over our Toolbox Setup, helping us set up our software on the straight and narrow from the word go. I'm Ludwik from Microvellum, and as usual, let's get kickstarted. So, as mentioned in the world's worst introduction, we're going to be focusing on one area of Microvellum, Toolbox Setup. Where is Toolbox Setup? Well, is right over here, aptly named Toolbox Setup. Click on him and we have a list of setup tools at our disposal. The first tool in our list is our wall setup. And click on him here, and this brings up the defaults of our walls that we can set up before we even draw them on our screen, ranging from how thick our wall is going to be, the height of the wall, even where our dimensions come in from our walls. The next thing on our list, as soon as I click on him, is going to be our product drawing setup. Similar to your wall setup, this lets you set up the dimensions that come in as you use the 2D drawing functions within Microvellum. Third in our list is the library specification groups. This guy, aka the red zone, aka Big Red, aka Ludwik from Microvellum, is where your library template is saved. Everything ranging from how your cabinets are constructed, what material they're using, where your hardware is saved, it is all stemmed from this guy over here. Now this guy has his own video dedicated to him, but I just want to quickly show you where that is if you ever wanted to get to him before I did. Now, we will be going through him, as I mentioned, in another video, but essentially, this is where all your projects stem from. Speaking of projects, fourth in our list, grayed out, unfortunately, because we don't have a project open, is our project specification groups. Similar to our library specification groups, the defaults for our particular project are saved in here. Further below is our options, specifically two options. We have our options. We also have our drawing options. Now we're going to come back to options. Essentially, this guy is our Microvellum options, where a lot of our Microvellum defaults are saved. We're going to come back to them a bit later on in the video, but I want to go on to drawing options. Now this guy here is our AutoCAD options. A lot of how your AutoCAD works stems from here, or at least the AutoCAD side of Microvellum. Remember, Toolbox is an AutoCAD OEM, so a lot of the AutoCAD functions can be used within here. There is, in fact, one AutoCAD function that I would like to go to first. So we're going to click on Drawing Options. As soon as it pops up, we're going to go straight to the Selection tab, and we're going to go straight to our pick box size. Now, this guy I generally like to set up from the word go, because this sets up the size of your cursor on your Microvellum screen. Have him all the way to the right, and it becomes jumbo. In fact, if I hit OK now, there is that big fella. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too big for my liking, so I'm going to go back to my drawing options, and my personal preference is I like to hover him around just above the sort of quarter mark, between the quarter mark and the halfway mark. That's just me personally. Again, it's up to you what size you are comfortable with as you are using Microvellum. Moving along in our Toolbox Setup journey, and we are on to our importing functions. Now, these guys here allow you to import third-party files into Microvellum, in fact, into projects. You can import XLS files, XML files, even CSV files, and actually create a Microvellum project from those outsourced files. Further below that is our Report Designer. Now this guy here, we have three options here that allows us to customize or develop manufacturing reports, product labels, or even part labels. Above that in the cog is our report groups, where we can set up reports to be automatically printed or plotted as soon as we create a work order. We can also do this with multiple reports, hence report groups. Further below that is our Show Tool Strip and our Flip Tool Strip menus. Now this guy over here pretty much works with this guy on my right hand side. In fact, if I untick Show Tool Strip, bingo presto, he has disappeared. I personally like him and I would like him back. I miss him a lot. So I'm going to go back to Toolbox Setup and show my tool strip once more. Now, the one below that is my flip tool strip menus, which essentially switches it from the right-hand side to the left, like so. Again, I like to have them on my right-hand side because righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, I don't know. I'm just making up reasons at this point. In any case, just click them again to switch them back to the original side. And finally, on the bottom of that list is my library designer. Now, this guy over here essentially allows me to customize my library and make mass changes to multiple products at once. Now, this is something that you can go into once you're comfortable developing your own library, but for now, we're going to leave him as he is. In fact, we're going to circle back to, as I mentioned before, the Microvellum options. Now, this fellow over here has a few tabs up the top. The first tab that we're in is our general, and these are some general settings that we have in Microvellum. How our item numbers are sequenced, what our default name for our project locations are. At the moment they're set to room, you can have them as apartments, you can have them as lists, however you'd like them formatted. Onto our AutoCAD tab, and these are some general settings on the AutoCAD side of things. Specifically, how we visually see our drawing space, whether it's in 2D wireframe, 3D, conceptual, what have you. How our redraws come up when we redraw our cabinets. Do we redraw our 3D cabinets with full machining, minimal machining, or just a 2D plan drawing? Do we want to have 2D tokens drawing in with our 3D tokens? Essentially, do we want to have a 2D image laying flat underneath our 3D fellas? And of course, our annotative scaling. Now, because I am using the Microvellum Foundation library, I'm going to have this annotative scaling ticked on. This allows my annotative blocks to scale up and down with my drawing. Onto the processing side of things, and this is pretty much how our processing center works. What's our processing center? When you want to produce nesting files or reports or labels, you have to create a work order through our processing center. And this essentially is how our processing center loads up our information. Onto our machining, and this pretty much allows us to set how we would like to set our G-code file names, as well as displaying single part drawings if we're running to a single part processor, such as a pod and rail. Speaking of machining, our next tab is our tool files. And this is where our processes are saved. This is where we can edit our processes, whether it's adding tools or renaming them or deleting them, all those options up the top over here. At the moment, I've got 3 tool files in my library. Some people may have one because they have one CNC machine or pod and rail or what have you. Some have multiple. It depends on your setup. Now, tool files go hand in hand with something else, and that thing is called processing stations. And processing stations, as the name implies, is how our nesting actually processes. This guy controls pretty much how our sheets are nested, how our yield is set up, what our distance between parts are, all those little bits and bobs within our processing center. Solid Model Analyzation is up next, and if you are using the Solid Model Analyzer module, a lot of how you analyze your 3D solids is done through here. What constitutes as something that can be processed as a Microvellum product is set up through this interface here. Region, not overly too much, just pretty much states what kind of geographical region our Microvellum is set up to. Data access, and this pretty much dictates whether we are connected to a SQL server or we are connected to a SQL compact edition. What's the difference? Well, one of them is pretty much a local library, meaning that it's a library that's saved on your computer and can be accessed anywhere because as long as you have that computer, you can access that library. That is your SQL CE. SQL Server is essentially when you have an SQL server set up, so you have multiple users accessing that same library. You generally have a PC set up as that main server where everything is stored and accessed. And finally, our utilities. And the main use for this fellow over here is going to be our database management. This is essentially our export and import function of Toolbox itself, whether it's importing in projects, whether it's importing in products, work orders, reports, tool files, anything that makes up our Microvellum library. Toolbox Explorer allows us to configure our product library more so. We'll get to that probably in a bit of a later video. Keep an eye out for that guy. And our change path to Microvellum data. Now this is pretty much where we can set up what folder we're looking at and what constitutes as our library folder, where our DWGs are saved, where our compact database is saved as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our toolbox setup ticked off our to-do list. Thank you so much for watching this video. As usual, I'm Ludwik from Microvellum, and thank you for watching. I promise it's the last time I do that, I swear. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.